is called the McGill Curl Up. It's a little different than some of the other curl up or even dead bug varieties. And in the McGill Curl Up, we're actually going to fight to maintain a neutral lumbar spine. So in the dead bug, we actually flatten the small of the back. We're really working on that posterior tilt of the pelvis. In the McGill Curl Up, we're trying to keep a neutral pelvis. We're working on more of an abdominal brace strategy, more or less. We're fighting to keep a stable spine position. This would be a position that we would certainly use if we were trying to move an external load. If I was in a weightlifting scenario, picking up something heavy, I would want this more global activation of the lumbar muscles, the hip muscles, the abdominals, everything kind of locked in a co-contraction that keeps my spine in a neutral position. So a little different technique, a little different strategy, and I think it serves a different purpose, right? But we need to be able to do both. I need to be able to move freely into flexion and extension, but I also need to be able to lock that thing up tight when I'm picking up something heavy to provide support and stability to the lumbar spine. So let's go ahead and set it up here. It's really not that complicated of an exercise. We're just going to get into like your traditional crunch position. I like to kind of play with where I want my spine to be during the exercise. So I can go into a little bit of a posterior tilt, kind of flatten my back against the floor. I can go into an anterior tilt and arch off the floor. And then I'm just going to try to settle down into, kind of what I think is middle. I may choose to actually slide my hand in there to kind of give myself another tactile cue, especially if this is a newer exercise for you. And now as I lift my shoulders, I'm going to try to contract everything through this abdominal area, my abs, my hips, my back muscles, everything's going to get tight. And as I lift and crunch through the shoulder or curl up through the shoulder, I'm fighting to maintain that same spine position. So this is a stiffness drill, right? So we're tight through the abs, tight through the back muscles. My hips are a little bit tight, my hip flexors, my glutes, everything's squeezed. And as I keep everything squeezed, I crunch and I just get into that brace position. Squeeze the glutes, squeeze the hip flexors, squeeze the abs, squeeze the back, everything's super tight. Flex through the thoracic spine. Keep the lumbar nice and stable. Okay. The tendency that I think, you get one of two scenarios. One is the tendency is to really round off and curl and create some mobility, which can be useful. But I think the tendency here for a lot of people would be to overuse the spinal extensors, and even though we're doing a crunch, you actually see a lift or an anterior tilt of the pelvis. So in this scenario, I'm going to keep my arms up out of the way. I'm crunching, and even though I'm crunching, because I'm keeping that curve, I actually lift my belly and my pelvis tilts forward and the arch gets bigger. We don't want that, right? So you're just trying to balance, we call it co-contract, right? You're trying to get the abs and the lumbar to be the same so that as you go through that motion, there's no movement, not forward, not backwards. That curve in your back stays exactly the same as you go. And if you're somebody that tends to kind of fall into extension, what you'll notice is that you'll do that in this exercise. Even though we're crunching, you'll dump your belly out the front, you'll dump the pelvis into further extension. So really fight to activate the abs. And then your goal is to contract the spine so it stays in place and crunch. So just enough to kind of meet pressure with pressure. Okay, nice little variety of the exercise, well documented, well proven for people with low back pain, especially flexion type low back pain.